Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to learn about Python console or the Python command line. So we have already installed two softwares. So the very first thing which we have installed is actually Python, and the next thing which we have installed is nothing but this JetBrains PyCharm, which is nothing but an integrated development environment for Python. Now let me explain you the brief difference between the two. So when we will be writing big programs, then we will be using PyCharm, which is nothing but an IDE, which will help us to manage all the files together, and it will allow us to write the code in a much more better way. But it is also necessary to learn how the Python console actually works. So for this section at least, we are going to go with the Python console, and we will be writing code in the Python console itself. So in order to open up the Python console, what you need to do is that you need to go to the search window and you need to simply type in Python, and this thing which pops up is nothing but the Python console. So simply open it up, and you could also call this thing as the Python command line or the Python console, but I am going to call it console. So now here what you need to do is that right in front of these three greater than signs, you actually need to write in the code which we want to execute. So in this Python console, what you could do is that you could write a single line of code, but when you need to write some big programs, then in that case we are going to go with the PyCharm. So let's go ahead, and without wasting any time, let's write our very first program, which is nothing but to print hello world on the screen. So printing hello world in Python is comparatively easy than other languages. So for printing hello world, you simply type in print, have a opening bracket and a closing bracket, and in between these brackets within single quotes we could type in something which we want to display. So in this case, as we want to display hello world, I am going to simply type in hello world, and that's it. You don't need to provide any semicolon at the end or nothing like that. So simply hit enter, and as you could see, it printed out hello world. Now after this, we are going to learn pretty basic things in this section, and the reason for that is some of the things in Python are slightly different from other languages. So when we proceed to more complex sections, you might face some problem if you don't go through this section. So even if you know any other programming language like C, C++ or Java, and if you are thinking of skipping this part, then please don't do so, because this part is extremely crucial, because there are slight differences between Python and other languages. Okay, so we have successfully printed out hello world on the console, and the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to perform some mathematical operations on this console. So for example, let's say you want to add in two numbers together. So let's say you want to add 200 and 300. So in Python, you could simply type in 200 plus 300, and when you hit enter, as you could see, you have the result. Now similar to addition operation, you could also perform subtraction. So if you type in 200 minus 300, as you could see, you get a negative result. Now you could also perform multiplication of things like 75 multiplied by 32, and you are going to have an answer. Now not only this, but you could also perform some complex mathematical operations like 5 multiplied by 6, and you could also specify in brackets some other operation like, let's say, 5 plus 89. And even if you type in a complex mathematical expression and if you hit enter, I guess I missed a multiplication sign here. So if you type in a mathematical expression or a complex expression and if you hit enter, as you could see, you are still going to have a result. Now these things might sound basic, but we need to go through them because they will be needed when we go for some complex sections. So the next thing which I want to mention is that there are actually two ways in Python by which you could divide numbers. So the simple way is like doing 500 divided by 100 by using a single slash. So if you type in a single slash, as you could see, you are going to get a float here. Now float is some value which has a decimal point. So in this case, as you could see, even if we didn't need the digits after the decimal point, still it printed out the result to be 5.0. Now if you were to eliminate the decimal point, what you could do is that you could simply type in 500, and instead of using a single slash, you could have simply used double slash here and type in 100, and let's see what is the result this time. So if you hit enter, as you could see, we get an integer value. So this time we don't have any decimal value or float value. Instead, we get the result as an integer value. Now the next thing which I want to mention is the divide by zero error. Now divide by zero error is there in almost each and every programming language. So for example, if you were to divide something by zero, you are going to get an error. So if you take any random number and if you try to divide this by zero, as you could see, you are going to get an error which says zero division error or division by zero. So that means you cannot divide any number by zero. So even if you have some mathematical expression like any number divided by something which is eventually going to give you a zero, so let's say this is going to be 99 minus 99, so automatically that comes out to be zero. So make sure that you don't have such expressions in your program, because that is going to give you a divide by zero error and your program is going to end then and there. So make sure that you check your code and check for the divide by zero error in order to avoid it. So after this, I also want to mention a thing about floats. So float is nothing but the data which is going to have a decimal point. So if we even multiply 6.0 multiplied by 3, so instead of getting the value as 18, we are going to get the value as 18.0. So if we hit enter, as you could see, now we have the value as 18.0. So the thing with float is that even if you use a float in any of the mathematical expression, your answer is going to be in the form of a float. That is, it is going to have a decimal point in it. So if you were to multiply simply 6 and 3, you will get a normal answer which is 18. But as you could see, if we multiply 6.0 with 3, you are going to get 18.0. And the same rule applies to addition as well. So if you type in 22.0 plus 15, you will get an answer as 37.0 instead of getting 37. So that's it for this lecture, and my main intention in this lecture was to get you guys familiar with the Python console or the Python command line and show you guys how you could write in a single line of code in Python console and execute it by just pressing enter. So we have learned about the Python console, we have learned how to perform some simple mathematical operations, and we will be learning more complex operations such as how to calculate exponent of a number and everything like that in the upcoming lectures. So that's it for this lecture, and I highly recommend you to go through the entire first section. I know it is going to sound silly and it is going to be a little bit boring, and like, I know this stuff, why am I actually learning this? But the thing is that if you go through the entire first section, you will find the other sections much more easy. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next class. Thank you.